Greetings, salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans, the best damn movie-related show on the internet for this Friday, 5th of July, here in the wonderful year of 2013. My name is John Campy. I'm the editor-in-chief over here at AMC Movie News for AMC Theaters. And I want to welcome you to the show. You might notice I'm alone today, all by myself. Why am I by myself? Well, because I'm such a great boss. I gave my whole staff the day off. Actually, I gave everybody yesterday and today off, but then Dennis Zen said, hey, look, I'm free in the morning. Do you want me to do that live show with you? And I said, yeah, absolutely, because Dennis is awesome. For those of you who missed it, here's what happened. So on Wednesday, 2 days ago, John Schnepp came in and we did our show. We shoot our shows at 10:30 in the morning at the AMC Burbank 16 in Burbank, California. That's where we shoot our show. And everybody came in, we shoot at 10:30 in the morning, and then we normally get it uploaded around anywhere between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. We get it finished, all the post-production, get it uploaded. Well, we shot the show, and Dennis, while editing the show, said, uh-oh. I'm like, what's wrong? I don't like the word uh-oh. What happened? And the hard drive died. So we lost the show. So we had no show. We tried a bunch of things to recover it. We couldn't get it recovered, so we lost the show. So we had no show on Friday. So we thought, okay, well, you know what? 4th of July, we weren't going to do a show anyway. How about to make it up to our viewers? Why don't we do a live show? Because we've had a bunch of people asking us to do live. So we said, let's do a live show. And we'll do like an hour long, and we'll just take questions from the mailbag, from the chat board. We'll do it interactive and blah, 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 blah. I didn't know if anybody would watch it. I didn't know if anybody would like it. But we did it, and apparently you guys liked it, so we will figure out a way to do more live stuff. So thank you so much for your feedback. The show that we did live is on our YouTube channel. Obviously, it's in our stream. You can look it up. It's Thursday, July the 4th show. And so anyway, I gave the staff yesterday and today off. So I decided, you know what, I'm not taking the day off. I'm going to do AMC Movie Talk and maybe bore you guys to death, because it's just me, I don't know. But I'm going to talk movies today. Now, there's not an awful lot of movie news going on. Obviously, the studios, you know, their PR people take the week or take days off this week, too. So I thought I'd just come in here and we'd talk movies. We're just going to talk movies today, just like film fans. That's all we're going to do is talk movies. And the first thing I wanted to bring up today, it kind of came up in the live show that we did yesterday on July 4th. You know, somebody asked the question, hey, you know, considering... You know, do the Oscars, does the Academy hate comic book movies? Because they constantly snub comic book movies, constantly snub them. Best case of that, best example of that is The Dark Knight. Got snubbed, didn't get a Best Picture nomination. That was a solid snub. Obviously, the Academy snubs comic book movies. And everybody knows comic book movies are my favorite genre of movies. Comic book sci-fi, you know. Comic book movies are sci-fi movies. So comic book sci-fi, that's my favorite genre of movie. That's my bread and butter. That's what I love more than anything else. So I said, you know, I'm going to say something that's not popular. I told the guy who asked the question. I said, here's the thing. Everybody knows I love The Dark Knight. I thought it was great. But back in 2008 or 2009 when it came out, I said that Dark Knight, I wrote an article back then that said, and the name of that article was An Inconvenient Truth That Dark Knight Didn't Deserve the Nomination. And that got some people upset with me. That's fine. I just call it like I see it. You know, I love The Dark Knight, but that doesn't mean I'm going to put on a blindfold and just become a puppet and say, Dark Knight was good, therefore it should win every Oscar. That's just not me. I'm not a bandwagoner. I just don't do that sort of thing. I try to look at it objectively. Even if I love it, I still try to acknowledge the weaknesses and the things I love. Like, I remember the first Transformers movie came out, and I said unabashedly, my all-time, at the time before Avengers, my all-time most fun I've ever had at a summer film ever, that first Transformers movie. But I also did a commentary track for Transformers where I completely acknowledge all of the horrible weaknesses and all of the things that movie did wrong. That's just the type of guy I am. For some reason, us film fans, we have this tendency where if we hate something, we will refuse to be objective and acknowledge any good stuff in it. And if we love something, We absolutely refuse to hear any criticism. And if somebody does criticize some elements of a film we love, we will either, gang up on them, label them as heretics, or say, oh, you're just nitpicking. I hate that phrase, nitpicking. By nitpicking, you mean I'm legitimately pointing out a legitimate weakness of a film you loved. If that's what you call nitpicking, then yes, I'm nitpicking. I hate it when we do that. But that's what we as film fans do. And guess what? Even though I hate it, and I try as much as I possibly can not to do that, I'm as guilty as that as anybody else, I assume. I'm sure I do that as well. I try not to. I try to recognize when I'm doing it and stop. But I'm human, just like you. We're human, you and I. That's what we do. But then we try to take a step back and be rational. And as much as I love The Dark Knight, and Heath Ledger won the Oscar for that, fully deservedly so. And some people say, oh, he just won the Oscar because he died. No. He deserved to win the Oscar that year. He absolutely deserved it, and the Oscars did not snub him, even though he was in a comic book movie. But my argument was there's this weakness and this weakness and this weakness, and while I loved it and it's awesome, and these weaknesses don't take away from the awesomeness of The Dark Knight, I can see why this leaves it out of getting a Best Picture nomination. Now, that was the last year, I believe, that the Oscars did only 5 nominees. I believe if that year the Oscars did 7 nominees, or 8 or 9 or 10 nominees for Best Picture, I do believe The Dark Knight would have gotten one of those nominations. But this brings up a couple of things. One, I think we got to be very careful when we use that word snub. I think the word snub is thrown around way too liberally. I think we use the word snub way too easy. Much like a 16-year-old guy dating a 16-year-old girl and them going on 3 dates and then saying, I love you. We throw around that term way too loosely these days too. But that term snub, I think we will use it way too easily. Like, I think that guy kind of deserved a nomination. Oh, and he didn't get a nomination. Snub! He was snubbed! No. I only think you use snub in the harshest of circumstances. And I'll define snub as this, in terms of Oscars, at any rate. I think if you can make a legitimate argument that this actor or this movie should not only have been nominated, but should have won. I think a solid argument could be made that this movie should have won that award and didn't get nominated. Then I think you can use the word snub. The last time I used the word snub was when Andrew Garfield, in the movie The Social Network, Andrew Garfield, who totally stole that show from Jesse Eisenberg and Justin Wooden Timberlake, I believe Andrew Garfield was the heartbeat of that movie. He brought the humanity and the actual emotion to that movie. I don't believe that movie's half as good as it was if it wasn't for Andrew Garfield. And I made the argument that Andrew Garfield should have won Best Supporting Actor that year. Not just nominated. He should have won. Now, Christian Bale, who was magnificent in The Fighter, won Best Supporting Actor, but my argument was always, that's bullcrap, because Christian Bale was not the supporting actor of that movie. He was the co-lead of that movie with Mark Wahlberg. He had just as much screen time, just as many lines, and that movie was just as much about him as it was about Mark Wahlberg, saying that was bullcrap that he got put in the Best Supporting category. He was only put in the Best Supporting category because they knew they could win that category. But Andrew Garfield should have won that. He was the Best Supporting Actor that year, and he didn't even get nominated. So I called that a snub. And I think a lot of people that I talk to who argue about Dark Knight should have got a Best Picture nomination. They'll say snub, but even most of them will even say, no, I shouldn't have won, but I got snubbed of a nomination. I'm like, well, come on then. If you're not even going to make the argument that it should have won, then you're on pretty thin ice. You're on a pretty precarious position arguing that it got snubbed of a nomination. Like, because you're saying you're not even saying deserve to win, so it not getting nominated really isn't that big of a deal. So I think we got to be careful how we use the word snub. But anyway, so we have this discussion on the show yesterday that I don't believe The Dark Knight Rises got snubbed, or The Dark Knight, got snubbed. I don't believe it got snubbed. I didn't believe it deserved to get nominated. I wouldn't have complained if it did get nominated. I think it would have got nominated if there were more than 5 nominees that year. So we had this whole thing. And the past 24 hours, and I love this type of stuff. I love being challenged. I do, because oftentimes I get corrected and I realize I was wrong about something. I love it when you guys email in and make points and make arguments. I love that. That is the most fun part for me about doing this job. I don't just need people saying, yes, we just agree with whatever John says, because number one, that would be a very foolish road of you to take. But number two, that doesn't help me grow as a film fan. I love being challenged. So in the past 24 hours, since making that statement, look, the Academy does not snub comic book movies. And they don't snub genre movies. Lord of the Rings won all those Oscars. Heath Ledger, Dark Knight did win a couple of Oscars, including Heath Ledger winning Best Supporting Actor. I think, and other than that, there just haven't been many comic book movies that deserve a Best Picture nomination. Been getting a lot of emails and messages, both on Twitter and my email, my Facebook, whatever, saying, absolutely, John, absolutely, the Academy snubs comic book movies. Every year they snub them. It's an embarrassment. It legitimizes the Oscars. Absolutely, they snub them. And it reminds me of a great conversation I had with a really good friend of mine about, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And he was like you. He believes absolutely that the Academy snubs comic book movies. And I got in this discussion with him. I said, okay, you believe Avengers should have been nominated for Best Picture, which, by the way, Avengers was my favorite film of last year. I said, okay, you believe, but I said, dude, you're making an argument that it should have won, but I know for a fact that you didn't even see Les Mis. Les Mis, obviously, being one of the films that was nominated for Best Picture. I know for a fact, dude, that you didn't even see Zero Dark 30. I told him, I said, look, I know for a fact that there is no way you even, because I remember I tried to get you to go see Argo, and you did not see Argo. I know for a fact that you did not see Silver Linings Playbook. I know that for a fact. And even if we go further back in time, like if we go to previous year, I know, because he argued with me all The Help. Well, why did The Help get nominated? Dude, you didn't even see The Help. The Help totally deserved to win Best Picture. You didn't even see Moneyball. You didn't even see The Descendants. You didn't even see. So here's my point. Quite often, not all the time, but quite often, I find when I get in these discussions with people who say, I don't know, Dark Knight should have won Best Picture, or they say Iron Man should have won Best Picture, or they say, the Academy is a joke that they didn't nominate this movie or that movie. I find quite often that these same guys probably don't go to see in theaters more than 12 to 15 movies a year. And that's how much the average film fan goes. We go to see one, maybe 1.5 movies a month. Some of us go a little bit more. Some people like me see about 200 films a year. But I find that these same guys who make this argument is that the Academy is snubbing these films are the same guys. It's like, okay, yeah, but you saw that film, but you only saw about a dozen others. And you didn't see at least 3/4 of the films that did get nominated for Best Picture. So how can you sit there and look me in the face and tell me, the Oscars snubbed them, when you didn't even see those movies? You saw 10 to 20 movies this year, and you're making an argument about a certain film getting snubbed? It's the same reason why I hate the MTV Movie. The MTV Movie Awards are a joke. Number one, they're completely fixed. They're completely scripted. They mean nothing whatsoever. They make up categories so that they can have, when the Transformers pays MTV a huge amount of money, then MTV Movie Awards make up a new award called Most Anticipated Movie. Do you remember that? In the MTV Movie Awards, they had, the Transformers hadn't come out yet. So the MTV Movie Awards made up a category called Most Anticipated Movie. That was an award category. Nobody had even seen the movie yet, but it was nominated for an award. And look, Transformers just happened to have spent $20 million in marketing at the MTV Movie Awards. And look, Michael Bay and the cast of Transformers just happened to be there. And surprise, surprise, Transformers wins Most Anticipated Film of the Year. The MTV Movie Awards are a complete and utter joke. If you're a film fan, you don't even watch them because it's an insult to film fans. Anyway, but they're also fan voted. I hate fan voted stuff completely. But John, why? The fans are the ones that count. Absolutely, the fans are the ones that count. But when you have a category, when you have a Best Picture category, I don't want the guy who saw 5 movies this year to have a vote. I'm sorry, there are 200 films this year. I don't want the guy who saw 5 movies to have an equal say and vote in this thing, like as the guy who saw 75 films and actually knows which films were the best this year. I don't want the guy who saw 7 movies this year to have a vote at the same time as the guy who watched 50 movies this year and actually knows what it is he's voting on. So that's why you get these ridiculous fan-voted shows, and you get things like Twilight nominated for Best Picture, and you get these ridiculously awful films nominated for Best Comedy or Best whatever. It's because it's voted on by the people who actually only saw 5, 6, 7, or 8 movies that year, and they're just voting for what it was they saw. That, to me, is ridiculous. It's preposterous. And it comes back to this whole thing, is do the Oscar snub comic book movies? And I know I'm blabbing on about this a lot, but this is a topic that really gets me going. Is that normally I find the people who make the argument that comic book movies get snubbed are the same people who don't actually watch films other than comic book, sci-fi, or genre films. It's like, I'm sorry, I am not letting you have a debate with me about whether the Avengers should have notched out Les Mis when I know you didn't even see Les Mis. So why would I even listen to you? I mean, so I think we as film fans need to broaden our scope in general a little bit. I think we need to have thicker skins. I think when we love a film, we have to be willing to engage and talk about the things that weren't good about it. I think when we hate certain films like Twilight, I talk to people about this all the time, say, yeah, Twilight, not a good series of movies, but I'm sorry, don't talk to me about how it's a blemish on humanity when I know for a fact you never even watched them. And I'll sit here and tell you that there were some redeeming qualities, not a lot, but there were some redeeming qualities about the Twilight series. I'm secure enough in my movie knowledge, and I'm secure enough as a fan to say, yeah, I didn't like those movies, but I'll point out, yeah, hey, this was good about it, and this was good about it. I'm secure enough as a fan to go, hey, I love this movie. It's my favorite of the year. But I'll be man enough to sit here and say, but yeah, this thing wasn't good about it, and this thing wasn't good about it, and this thing wasn't good about it. Because I'm secure enough as a film fan to know that it doesn't have to change my enjoyment of the film. So anyway, I know I rambled on a lot about that, so forgive me. We got a bunch of mailbag questions I'm going to try to get to here while we still have time. I know I wasted a lot of time just talking about that. Sorry. But that's what I like to do. It's only me today. I get to do what I want, and I wanted to talk about that. So let's move on to some mailbag questions. Let's start with one from John Fernandez, who writes, if Marvel decides to make a Deadpool movie, I won't even mention the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, do you think to give the Deadpool's character justice, it would have to be a rated R movie? Given the nature of this character, I really don't see how it could be done as a PG-13. Of course, Marvel will make an amazing PG-13 Deadpool movie, but should they make it R instead? Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot for the question, John. First thing I got to point out, there's 2 really important things I need to point out. Let's take a sip of water. Number one is that if a Deadpool movie gets made, it won't be made by Marvel. Marvel doesn't own the movie rights to Deadpool. Deadpool is part of the X-Men universe. And obviously, since he was in, that terrible Wolverine movie, Deadpool is a Fox property. So if anybody's going to make Deadpool, it's going to be Fox, unless Fox lets the rights to him go. So there's that. The second thing I want to mention too is this. I thought the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool was awesome. I thought the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool in that Wolverine film was awesome until he did the surgery, took away his mouth, and then just made him that stupid android, basically. But when he was still just normal and human, and I thought that was a great representation of Deadpool. I really did. Up until they did the whole thing where they turned him into that stupid thing. Well, I don't even know what you call that, but that wasn't Deadpool. So I really liked it. So, but I agree with you. I have always believed, if you're going to do a Deadpool movie, to do Deadpool justice, it's got to be rated R. I think you're going to have to cut a lot of corners. Now, that's not to say to make a PG-13 Deadpool isn't possible. Making a PG-13 Deadpool is absolutely possible. But I think you got to cut a lot of corners, and you got to shave off a lot of the things that makes the Merc with a Mouth who he really is. And I want the Merc with a Mouth. I want that guy. I want that movie. I want that hard, edgy thing. And the interesting thing is, Ryan Reynolds has been trying for a long time to get a real Deadpool movie made. And he said himself in an interview we talked about on AMC Movie Talk a few months ago, he said, look, You got to do it. You got to do Deadpool so rated R that you almost got to cut things back to make it R instead of like NC-17. He goes, that's the Deadpool they want to make. He said, but we're having a really hard time getting a studio to want to sign up for something like that. And that's understandable. R-rated comic book films has not done great. And studios have kind of shied away from them a bit. Understand. That's fine. I get it. But Ryan Reynolds is trying to get that movie made. Ryan Reynolds is the guy who's the champion right now of trying to get that R-rated Merc with the Mouth movie made. So hats off to Ryan Reynolds. I hope he succeeds and can give us that movie. It would be great. Next question comes from Travis White, who writes, hey guys, love the show. Been watching the show for a couple of weeks now, and I've noticed no one's been talking about Elysium. Actually, we have talked about Elysium, but if you've only been watching for a couple of weeks, no problem. I'll let you go on that. No one's been talking about Elysium, or at least from what I've seen. I know it's a month away from coming to theaters, but I was wondering, what do you guys think of the movie? I haven't seen Elysium yet, but Elysium is one of these movies that I've really been looking forward to. Last year at Comic-Con, I had the chance to actually get together with Matt Damon and talk about Elysium. I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, this is the second film from director Neil Blomkamp. His first film was District 9. This film looks great. The thing I'm really excited about this movie, they do not show enough Sharlto Copley in the trailers. Now, Sharlto Oaks also played he played Howling Mad Murdoch in the A-Team movie, and he was Wickus. He was the main guy in District 9, and he looks so badass. In the few seconds that he's in the trailer for Elysium, he looks so badass. I cannot wait to see him in this movie, and I think it looks wonderful. My one criticism from what I've seen in the trailers, and this is it. This isn't even a big criticism. My one hesitation about what I've seen from Elysium so far is that if you turn off the volume and I just watch the trailer, to me it just looks like it looks like a sequel to District 9. I mean, it looks like the same movie to me. Visually, it looks like just the exact same movie. And I'd like to see Blomkamp kind of stretch out of that. But hey, it's not like he's done 5 of these movies. This is just his second one. So let's let him continue to play in the sandbox that he's comfortable in and then stretch his wings, which is actually probably a pretty smart thing for him to do. Either way, I think this movie looks fantastic. The cast is stellar. When you got Jodie Foster and Matt Damon, Sharlto Copley, and this movie's going to be badass. This movie's going to be great. I cannot wait for this movie. So that's my thoughts on that. Next question comes to us from Matt Lungstrom, who writes, do you think with the Harry Potter franchise and Nolan's Batman universe being over, that Warner Brothers realizes that they need to get the DC universe moving and stop dropping the ball with it in order to have a consistent moneymaker franchise at the studio? Excellent observation, Matt, about the fact, the thing with Warner Brothers right now is that for a while, they've had 2 easy go-to moneymakers. They've had their Harry Potter franchise, and they've had the Christopher Nolan Batman series. 10 films they were able to milk out of that franchise. 10 or 11, I can't remember. Because I can't remember if there's 7. I think there's 7 Harry Potter films, right? Right? Okay, and let's say 7. That with the 3 from Batman, 10 films they've always had to lean back on. They've always had guaranteed moneymaker. Now that's gone. Christopher Nolan's Batman series is done. Harry Potter's done. What do they got now? They need DC to work. They need their comic book franchise. They need that next big money-making franchise. That's what they need, and they're going to try. They're off to a great start with Man of Steel. Man of Steel, which for me is my favorite film of the year so far. I just don't get it. And I know I'm going off on a side. Let me get sidetracked here on Man of Steel. I don't get why this film has a 54 or 56 or 58% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Remember, that's not Rotten Tomatoes' fault. Rotten Tomatoes is just collecting all the info from all the critics around the world, TV, newspaper, online. They're just collecting all their reviews, and they're telling us, hey, X% of critics gave it a favorable review, X amount of critics didn't. I cannot believe that while it's the majority of them, that only 58% of film critics gave Man of Steel a positive review. Man of Steel is awesome. And Man of Steel is absolutely awesome. And I do not like I don't like it when film fans go, oh, you didn't like this movie? Well, you just didn't like it because of this, this, and this. I hate it when film fans put excuses in other film fans' mouths. It's like, wait, I didn't say I didn't like that movie because of what you said. I have my own reasons for not liking it. And I hate it when film fans do that. But I'm going to do it right now because I read a lot of these negative reviews for Man of Steel. I read a lot of these chat boards where people were bad-mouthing Man of Steel. And it usually, not always, there are exceptions to this, But it usually came down to the same thing. They wanted their red underwear. They wanted 2 hours of Superman flying around and saving kittens from grandma's trees and eating freshly baked apple pie. That's what they wanted. They wanted some Sesame Street Superman who just smiles at the camera, perfectly gelled hair with the little curl, and just doing good, flying around and helping Boy Scouts help old Asian ladies cross the street. That's what they wanted. You read their review. I'm not putting words in their mouths. I'm reading their review, and that's really what they're saying. Somebody said, why do we have to have a dark Superman? He wasn't dark. Kal-El was not dark. The world he was in was dark. But he wasn't. He was always believing the best and hoping for the best and wanting to do the right thing all the time. That's what Superman was. He was completely true to who Superman is. But it was a darker world because that's the type of movie we like having our superheroes now in a world we relate with more. And that's what they did. So Warner Brothers has that going for them. Sorry, I went off on that Man of Steel tangent. So that's what Warner Brothers has going. They did a great start with Man of Steel. Now, how do they follow it up? Now, you said in your question, Matt, that, do they realize now they got to stop dropping the ball? Well, here's the deal. Warner Brothers and no studio in Hollywood ever tries to drop the ball. They always try to make a great movie and a movie that will make money. That's what they always try to. I guarantee you, as much as a lot of people didn't like Green Lantern, they tried to make a good Green Lantern. They tried to do a good job on it. They put a lot of money into that franchise, and they were hoping it would be great and audiences would love it, and it'd go out and make a lot of money, and that it would become a franchise. That's what they wanted to do. That's what for most people, it didn't work. I didn't hate Green Lantern. I like it more than most people did, but even I'll say, yeah, it was a missed opportunity. But they tried their best, and it didn't quite work. They tried their best with Man of Steel. Guess what? It did work. My favorite film of the year so far. So I believe that you're right. I think Warner Brothers realizes they need this to be their next big franchise vehicle. Their best chance of having a great franchise vehicle is absolutely their DC properties. That's the way they got to go. They know it. But I don't think that now they realize they actually have to do their best. I think they've always been trying their best. So let's see how it kind of pans out in the future. All right, next question comes to us from Sean Ray. And Sean Ray writes, I heard John was into World of Warcraft. So what do you guys think of a World of Warcraft movie? Because I personally think if this film ever comes to the light of day, it's going to be big. Like movie smashing records big. The amount of people that played this game was insane. It already has a fan base that would make this movie a success. Thanks a lot for the question, Sean. Well, a couple things you're going to be happy to hear. They are making a World of Warcraft movie or a Warcraft movie. It's being directed by Duncan Jones, who is the same guy who wrote that film that nobody saw, but everybody who did see it loved, called Moon. It's awesome. If you have a chance, go watch it. It's called Moon. And then he directed that, I'm forgetting the name of it now, that train blowing up movie that he did with Jake Gyllenhaal like 2 years ago. I can't remember why. You know the film I'm talking about. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I lost it there for a second. He's a great director. He's doing the Warcraft movie, and I will think it'll be big. However, this brings up a lot of things about video games and sometimes cartoon shows and whatever. People say, oh my gosh, the fan base is so big. It's a guaranteed success. Well, let's look at that for a second. I believe at its peak, I think right now World of Warcraft has like 8 million subscribers. I believe at its peak it had like 11 to 12 million subscribers. That's a lot of people playing the game. The average movie ticket right now in the US is just a hair under $8. So that's the average movie ticket. So that means if every single person who played World of Warcraft went out and bought a ticket to go see the Warcraft movie, and let's face it, not all of them will, but let's, for argument's sake, say every single solitary person who played World of Warcraft runs out and buys a ticket to watch the movie, that means the movie's going to make $88 million, and that would be a complete colossal flop. So that means that they need this movie to appeal to a lot more than just the people who made the game, and the people who played the game is nowhere near a big enough audience to make that movie profitable. Now, if it was going to cost $5 million to make a Warcraft movie, then obviously $88 million is a huge box office smash. But let's face reality, they're going to spend $150 to $200 million making this movie. That's what it's going to cost. So they need, after you take all the financials into consideration, they need this movie to make about $400 million worldwide. And the 11 to 12 million people who played the video game ain't going to cut it. Ain't going to cut it at all. Not come close. They need a lot more people than who just played the game to come out and see it. A lot more. And can it do it? I think they can. I think Duncan Jones knows what he's doing. I think he's a very capable director. I think he's been great in what he's done so far. I think fantasy can be very appealing, especially if Lord of the Rings continues to do well, if The Hobbit continues to do well. I think if they have a smart marketing team and market this thing right, then yeah, this movie can be a big hit. Box office record-breaking hit? No. Not going to break box office records. It's not. But can it be profitable and become a franchise? Yeah, it can. The possibility is absolutely there, and I want to see it. And yes, and I play an undead mage, by the way, whose name is Darth Rampage. Darth Rampage, because I'm terrible at coming up with creative names. 2 more questions we're going to do here, and then we'll call it a day. The first one comes from Mr. Awesome Guy, who writes, do you guys think that Marvel would ever remake the Hulk origin story and not count the Ed Norton one as canon because Mark Ruffalo did such a good job in Avengers? Good question, Mr. Awesome Guy. Great name, by the way. No, they'll never reboot the origin story because Mark Ruffalo and Ed Norton are the same character. Now, there was that first Ang Lee Hulk film, obviously, and that is gone. That first Ang Lee Hulk movie is gone. That's not considered canon anymore. But the Hulk, remember, the Hulk that we saw in Avengers is supposed to be the same Hulk from the Ed Norton. The Ed Norton Hulk is the Hulk that's in the Avengers. It's just being played by a different actor. So, no, you don't reboot the origin. Nobody wants to see an origin story again. I hate origin stories. Especially when we've seen them already. And we've seen the origin story of the Hulk. We know the origin story of the Hulk. And the Ed Norton version Hulk movie did such a great job of just recapping the origin story in like the first 30 seconds of the credits. Perfect. I wish more superhero films would do it that way. But it's the same Hulk. So, no, there's no need to reboot the origin story. We know the origin story. That is the same Hulk. They're not going to reboot it. They've got Ruffalo in it now, who is Ed Norton. That's the same character. So, yeah, no need to reboot it. They won't reboot the origin story. They won't go that way, and I'm glad that they won't go that way. All right, last question of the day that I'm going to take is from Sam Foglio. And Sam writes, greetings and salutations, AMC Movie Talk. John, I saw your live show yesterday and your live tests and thought they were great. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. The question is, if you heard any news on the Family Guy movie. I'm not sure if they're making it, but Seth MacFarlane said he had an idea of the movie and that would not work on television. After the success of Ted, do you think that they will make it? And what does he mean it won't work on television? Well, back in November, Seth MacFarlane, creator of the Family Guy, also wrote, directed, and did the voice of Ted, which I think that was my favorite comedy last year. I think that I ranked that as my number 1 comedy for 2012. Love that movie. And I really like the Family Guy. So he said back in November that it's a sure thing. They are going to make a Family Guy movie. They don't have the timetable yet, whatever. But he said, we came up with an idea that we could never do on television. To me, that means rated R. They want to do a rated R Family Guy movie. I think they're going to push the boundaries a lot because they're already pushed the boundaries as much as they can on TV. And if he says, I came up with this great idea that is something we couldn't do on television, so it's great for a movie, I think that means rated R, and that they're going to do it. And here's an interesting thing. I don't think it's happened yet, but I think Seth MacFarlane is actually going to be a guest on the first Simpsons episode of the upcoming year. And he's going to be voicing a guy who tries to seduce Marge, which I think is great. I think that's awesome. There's always been a real friendly rivalry between Simpsons and Family Guy. I think that him being on the show on The Simpsons is going to be great. So yeah, he said it's absolutely going to happen. They just haven't figured out a timetable yet. He's working on another comedy right now, a Western. I believe it's called A Million Ways to Die in the West. I might not be remembering the title correctly, but I think that's the title. So once he gets that out of the way, I'm sure they're going to start developing the Family Guy movie. Well, folks, that'll do it for us. Hey, listen, before you do anything else, let me give you my my obligatory little click the subscribe button speech. Listen, that's how you show us you support what we do. We don't need you to send us money. We don't need that. We just support us by clicking subscribe. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. Keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news, and of course our daily AMC Movie Talk show and our weekend AMC mailbag shows. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AMC Theaters. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/AMC Theaters. If you like an audio-only version of this show, look on down in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and our Stitcher Radio so you can listen to us on the way to work. I want to remind you, Comic-Con is coming up. Please come and be a part of my annual Masters of the Web panel. It's going to be Thursday morning at Comic-Con, July 18th, in room 24ABC at the Convention Center. And this year is a special horror theme. We got the writer and the director from the upcoming new film, You're Next, from Lionsgate, which is some critic friends of mine are calling one of the best horror films in years. We've got amazing horror panelists. This is going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you come and join us. And of course, on the evening of that Thursday, we are going to have an AMC Movie Talk meet and greet in the bar on the first floor of the Omni Hotel. And yes, you can be 16 and still come. And I'm going to be there. Amy Rose is going to be there. Dennis, John Schnepp, Chrissa Lee, Bert Chavez is going to be there. Clark Wolf is going to be there. Gray Drake. We're all going to be there, the whole crew. So come on down, have a drink with us, say hello, and meet us. We look forward to meeting you there. So until next time, thanks so much for joining me, guys. Sorry it was just me. But my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News. And until then, bye-bye.